right from my very early years, I've never wanted to live an empty life. I always wanted to live with assurance. I always wanted to know what was God's plan, what was God's purpose, what did He expect of me. I don't want to do things just because everybody else is doing them, or it's the fashionable thing to do. My thought was always, what if that's not what God wants? Wouldn't that be an empty exercise? But how was I going to know what God wanted? I couldn't get a better idea than to go to the scriptures. At least I was sure that's one book that will not speculate. Anybody else could speculate. They could say, well, maybe this and maybe that. They could speculate for me. They could theorize. Philosophers will theorize. Historians, economists, they're all going to theorize. Politicians will theorize. Scientists. And they could be wrong. A few days ago, I was reading of a man who was trying to sue his state government or so for wrongful conviction. He was put in prison for 37 years for a crime he never committed. 37 long years for a crime he never committed. Look at it there. A man in Florida, exonerated after 37 years in prison. Isn't that terrible? The system failed him. That's what I'm trying to tell you. The system failed him. The judicial system failed him. The government failed him. Do you want to rely on the system? Start practicing relying on God. Start practicing it. If you haven't practiced it, start now. The system failed him. Put him in prison for 37 years for a crime he never committed. It's not the only one. There's several others. And even as we speak, there are people behind bars for a crime they never committed. The system failed. The government failed. If they can fail so, you want to trust the same system? The problem is, if you got to trust something. That's the problem. You got to trust something. You got to rely on something. You see, you find the necessity to rely on a government or on some authority. Why? Because you were just not built to be faithless. I understand that. That's the problem. But it's got a solution. Man was never built to be faithless. They've got to have faith in something. They've got to have faith in something. So they create a system and trust it. They create a society and they got to put their faith in the society. I can understand that. But wouldn't it be wonderful if men were truly different from you? What do I mean by that? Because you are not reliable. That's why the system run by people like you are not reliable.